Welcome to PraDa Live. I'm Jackie Mendez. I'm your host for today's show. Happy Friday. That's right. And before we introduce our attorneys today, I want to remind everyone that number on the screen is 888-88-LEGAL, and that number is free. And so is that consultation. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Today we're going to be talking criminal law. Of course, it's Friday. The weekend's coming up. First, I'd like to introduce attorney Mike Haber.
Good afternoon. How are you? Nice to be back again.
And of course, our partner here at PraDa Law, Daniel Silver.
Happy Friday, everyone. Pleasure to be back.
And our other partner, the lovely Jennifer Pratt.
I love the lovely. Thank you so much, Jackie. Happy Friday to all. Pleasure to be here with everyone this evening.
Happy Friday to all is right. 888-88-LEGAL. Call us at any time during the show. The show's live. The call's free. The consultation is free. Let's get right into it, Jennifer.
We're going to get right into it. We've got Attorney Silver here today and Attorney Haber. And Attorney Haber practices exclusively criminal law, but a little unknown secret for some of us, or some of y'all really, is that Attorney Silver, before becoming a full-time family law practitioner, did practice criminal law as well, and so is equally very excited about the topic. And we're going to be talking today about Fourth Amendment. Jackie, do you know what the Fourth Amendment is?
Fourth Amendment, I think it's unreasonable search.
Wow, she gets a prize for that. I don't know that. I don't know that most people. There you go. I don't know that most people know what the word and what it, the verbiage and what it actually says. But I think most Americans know that you have a right not to be searched for just no reason, right? Mm-hmm. But we're going to be talking about that this evening, and I'm going to start off with Attorney Haber. I know he has a lot of information to share with us about the Fourth Amendment, what it is, how it works, and how it can protect you or not this weekend.
That's right.
Well, thanks for throwing it my way.
Absolutely.
You know, like you said, there's so much to talk about with the Fourth Amendment. It's almost tough to pick a focal point to begin with. But let's just start with the premise that there's a difference between searching your property or your premises versus searching your person. Okay. And so we would have to identify what we're talking about to kind of get into it. But you know, you could be talking about your home, you could be talking about your car, you could be talking about your personal items that you're carrying with you, a pocketbook or a suitcase, or certainly you could be talking about yourself. For instance, if you're stopped on the roadway and a police officer decides that they're going to pat you down. Where does the Fourth Amendment start? Where does the Fourth Amendment end? And I think the key word when it comes to the Fourth Amendment is the word reasonable, or actually the word they use is unreasonable. But either way, is the search reasonable under the circumstances, or is a warrant required? That's going to be the ultimate question to be determined.
And why is this important to our viewers today? Because, well, you know, it's a free-for-all out there, and sometimes law enforcement officers may not follow the correct established procedures. And if your constitutional rights are violated, it happens every day in Miami-Dade County. So if your rights are violated, we may be able to be getting evidence excluded because it may be seen as the fruit of the poisonous tree. So that Fourth Amendment.
Dan's getting all biblical.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break it down, guys, because this is what happens when you put very smart people on TV. Let's break this down. It's me, Jennifer Pratt. Let's make this real easy. I'm in my car, and I'm driving home after a long day at work, and it's 11:30 at night, and there's this alleged, curfew. I get pulled over. Are they allowed to tell me to get out of my car, to pat me down? Does a woman need to come? What's the deal with that? Can they search me as a person? Let's start with people. What are some of the implications, or what are some of the scenarios where a person can or can't be searched?
I think that's interesting because you threw in the little COVID breaking of the curfew, which
I think leads to some probable cause to pull me over. So I made it kind of easy. I gave you guys a curveball.
I mean, it'd be a lot easier if you were reckless driving or speeding, because with a violation of an ordinance regarding a curfew, there may be some gray area there. But either way, Haber, what do you think about that?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say that, because now you're talking about the potential for being arrested just for being out. So you may have committed an arrestable offense just by being where you are at that particular time. So, that is definitely a curveball. But if we took that out of the equation and just went back to the basic traffic stop.
I'm a nurse, so I'm considered, critical or whatnot, and so that was out of the window. But they pulled me over is the point. What now?
Whatever the reason, The bottom line is that a traffic stop is generally done for the purpose of some violation of traffic law. And the parameters of a traffic stop are dictated by the purpose of the stop itself. So if you're stopped for speeding, then the officer is entitled to detain you for as long as it takes to basically write you a speeding ticket. Naturally, they're also entitled to run your driver's license and your vehicle VIN number or license plate or what have you to make sure the car's not stolen. But the point is, they're not going to be able to keep you there indefinitely. Now, this is a detention. This is a Fourth Amendment, as a seizure for purposes of the Fourth Amendment, every single time you get stopped. So if you are stopped in a car, you are able to be detained for the purpose for which you are stopped. How do they get to search you? That's going to be a much trickier question.
And also, you know, when you're in your car, when you're outside in the world versus your home, you know, your home is your castle. So you really have some very strong Fourth Amendment protections. Whereas if you're out driving, you know, you're subject to traffic laws, you have less Fourth Amendment protections.
Well, but I would argue that you still have the same Fourth Amendment protection to the extent that they can't just grab you out of your car and ransack your vehicle or your person. They're going to need to justify that both subjectively, meaning in their own mind they actually have to have a reasonable and articulable belief that there's criminal activity going on.
Is that probable cause?
And, well, no, reasonable suspicion and probable cause are definitely different standards. So probable cause is the standard for an arrest. Reasonable suspicion can be the standard for a detention. And we'd have to get into a discussion, which I think we could probably do after the break, probably a very fruitful discussion, to use your biblical reference, Dan, about Florida's stop and frisk law, which definitely goes to that issue.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Haber. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have to take a quick break, but I want to remind you, 888-88-LEGAL, give us a call because that call is free, the consultation is free. Right, Jennifer?
That's right. We're going to talk about all the fruits under the sun when we come back. And we're going to continue this conversation about what can happen if you are pulled over this weekend. Can they search you? Can they search your vehicle? Can they search your home? And I want to also talk about these stop and frisk. I know they were very popular back in the days in New York. A certain mayor made them very popular, who then later ran for president. We will talk about that and whether or not Florida has a similar type of, stop and frisk and things like that. So we'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned. You'll want to hear everything we have to say. Today's our criminal show, but we'll be right back.
I know you're home right now asking yourself, how? How will I pay my rent, my mortgage, my bills, my credit card debt? I'm attorney Alexis Garcia with PraDa Law. I've personally helped people with financial problems over the last 10 years. I understand what you are going through. We saw people lose it all in the 2008 financial crisis. You don't have to lose it all. The consultation is free. Call us now. I will help protect what you have built. You have nothing to lose by calling us. Call us now. These are trying times. This deadly virus is affecting our health, economy, jobs, our small business owners. Bankruptcy protection may be able to save assets and immediately stop your creditors from harassing you. Small business owners, employees of business of any size, we know you need help. Call us now. We will help you get back on your feet. Don't wait until it's too late. This is the time to call.
Sé que estás en la casa ahora mismo preguntándote, ¿cómo voy a pagar la hipoteca, la renta, los biles, las tarjetas de crédito? Soy la abogada Jennifer Pratt con PraDa Law. Yo personalmente he ayudado a las personas con problemas financieros durante los últimos 10 años. Yo entiendo por lo que estás pasando. Vimos cómo la gente lo perdió todo durante la crisis financiera de 2008. No tienes que perderlo todo. Llama ahora. La consulta es gratis. Te ayudaremos a proteger todo lo que has construido durante todos estos años. Sabemos que estos son tiempos difíciles. Este virus mortal está amenazando nuestra salud, nuestra economía, nuestros empleos y a los propietarios de nuestras pequeñas empresas. La consulta es gratis. Llame ahora. Te ayudaremos a recuperarte. No esperes hasta que sea demasiado tarde. Llame ya.
And welcome back to PraDa Law Live. I'm Jackie Mendez. Happy Friday once again. This is the criminal show today, ladies and gentlemen. Why do you want to stay tuned? Because the weekend is here, okay? And you don't want to get in any trouble. And if you do, you can call us at 888-88-LEGAL. right, Jennifer?
Right now, that's right, Jackie. Right now, with the state of affairs, we've got people that are getting pulled over. And, one of the things I see often, Attorney Haber and Attorney Silver, and I can't imagine that some of our viewers also haven't seen it. Some of our listeners on the radio haven't seen it. And it's these social media posts where people, on purpose, and, depending on how you believe the video is, you can say they're defying the police, or perhaps they're adhering to the constitutional rights, right? It depends how you say it, but the point is, I hear often in these videos, they'll say to the police, am I being detained? Am I being detained? Why is that an important question when you are being asked or pulled over by a police officer? Is there a magic word? What does that mean?
That's a magic word.
Let me just say that there's 3 tiers. We call them tiers of police citizen encounters.
And we don't mean tears like the tattoo tear after I kill someone right here.
Okay. More like on a wedding cake.
Got it. Wedding tears. Got it.
So you've got an encounter. An encounter is voluntary. Anybody can walk up to anybody and try and engage them in conversation. Police officer, civilian, it makes absolutely no difference. The definition of an encounter is it's voluntary, so you can turn around and walk away and not engage. If you ratchet that up to the next level, you've got a detention. And in order to have a detention, now we're talking about the idea of stop and frisk, right? Or just stop, not necessarily getting to the frisk point. But you are not permitted to leave, you are detained. That could be a traffic stop. It could be an officer who just walks up to you on the street and says, excuse me, Ms. Pratt, or excuse me, ma'am, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? You're not necessarily free to leave because you're being detained, but you're also not under arrest, which is the 3rd tier. That's ratcheting it up to the highest level. So all of these things, the first one does not, but the second 2, a detention and a arrest, trigger the 4th Amendment.
So I think to answer Jennifer's question, they ask in these encounters, are you free to leave? Or am I being detained? Because if they say you're being detained, you're not free to leave. And I think
so what does that mean, though? So I'm being questioned. They're stopping me outside of the food mart as I'm coming out of the food mart, and I'm getting into my car, and I get stopped, and they're asking me questions. Where are you going? What's your name? Give me your name. And my first question, like in most of those social media posts, the guys or the girls will say, am I being detained, officer? Very respectfully, but am I being detained? And the officer says, yes. What does that mean when they say yes?
I would certainly think that if they were going to have you make any statements, they would have to read your Miranda rights to you.
Before
saying
yes.
Right. Otherwise,
but I'm not under arrest.
Well, let's not go too far on Miranda now, because that's going into the 5th Amendment, and I'm sure we'll do that on another show. Let's kind of stick with the 4th for a moment. So, look, some detentions are implicit, like a traffic stop we were talking about earlier. You are detained. The minute that those lights go off behind you and you pull over, you are detained. If you don't stop, now you're fleeing and eluding and committing a felony. So you are detained at that juncture. Now, what you're talking about is a little trickier, right? An officer walks up to you, you're not driving your vehicle. They walk up to you as you're about to enter your vehicle. Now that's a legitimate question. Why are you approaching the officer? What did I do? What am I doing? Look, you have to be careful in terms of how you interact with people, because you never know. Police officers, some of them are very mature, some of them are immature, some of them are explosive, some of them are not. In any given moment, any person can react in any given way, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily want to be confrontational, but surely you have a right to know why it is that this officer is approaching you. There's nothing wrong with asking that question, particularly in a respectful manner.
Thank you so much, Attorney Haber. Ladies and gentlemen, give us a call, 888-88-LEGAL. That consultation will be free.
We have about a minute left in this segment before we start wrapping up and going to our 3rd segment. Talk to me, Attorney Haber, about the stop and frisk. I mentioned earlier that in New York they were very popular. I think it was Mayor Bloomberg who had Giuliani, that's right, who instituted them. And then there was a lot of controversy about how they didn't want them. I've learned today, ladies and gentlemen, listen up. We have stop and frisk in Florida.
So in Florida, Florida statute 901.151 is called the Florida Stop and Frisk Law. And it basically says anytime that a police officer has reasonable suspicion, not probable cause, but reasonable suspicion, they believe that you have committed, you are committing, or you are about to commit any criminal offense. It does not need to be a felony. It can be a misdemeanor. It can be a county ordinance. If they have a reasonable and articulable suspicion, that is reasonable, again, then they're entitled to detain you, and they can ask you questions. They don't have to Mirandize you. They can ask you questions at that point to either confirm or to dispel their suspicion. If their suspicion is dispelled, they have to let you go. If their suspicion is confirmed, they have to decide whether or not they're going to ratchet the tier up from the detention to an arrest.
That sounds like a really low, is that like a low standard though, all things considered?
I don't think so. I think it's actually a high standard because, again, they have to articulate it. So if they just have a hunch or a whim or a suspicion, it's not going to be reasonably articulable. They're going to have more than that.
Okay, well, thank you so very much, Attorney Haber. We'll be right back. We have to take a quick break, and we'll have our last segment. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you one more time, 888-88-LEGAL. The call's free, the consultation's free. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I know you're home right now asking yourself, how? How will I pay my rent, my mortgage, my bills, my credit card debt? I'm attorney Alexis Garcia with PraDa Law. I've personally helped people with financial problems over the last 10 years. I understand what you are going through. We saw people lose it all in the 2008 financial crisis. You don't have to lose it all. The consultation is free. Call us now. I will help protect what you have built. You have nothing to lose by calling us. Call us now. These are trying times. This deadly virus is affecting our health, economy, jobs, our small business owners. Bankruptcy protection may be able to save assets and immediately stop your creditors from harassing you. Small business owners, employees of business of any size, we know you need help. Call us now. We will help you get back on your feet. Don't wait until it's too late. This is the time to call.
Sé que estás en la casa ahora mismo preguntándote, ¿cómo? ¿Cómo voy a pagar la hipoteca, la renta, los biles, las tarjetas de crédito? Soy la abogada Jennifer Pratt con PraDa Law. Yo personalmente he ayudado a las personas con problemas financieros durante los últimos 10 años. Yo entiendo por lo que estás pasando. Vimos cómo la gente lo perdió todo durante la crisis financiera del 2008. No tienes que perderlo todo. Llama ahora. La consulta es gratis. Te ayudaremos a proteger todo lo que has construido durante todos estos años. Sabemos que estos son tiempos difíciles. Este virus mortal está amenazando nuestra salud, nuestra economía, nuestros empleos y a los propietarios de nuestras pequeñas empresas. La consulta es gratis. Llame ahora. Te ayudaremos a recuperarte. No esperes hasta que sea demasiado tarde. Llame ya.
And welcome back once again to PraDa Law Live. I'm your host, Jackie Mendez. It's Friday. Today's show is the criminal show, just before the weekend. And I can't believe it's our last segment. The show has flown by, but we have a lot of information for you guys. 888-88-LEGAL. Give us a call. That consultation will be free. Let's get into it.
That's right. It's the weekend, and we want to continue this conversation regarding getting pulled over, getting stopped. What are your rights? What is it that you can and can't do, etc. And one of the things that may come up, maybe not this weekend, but at some point, whether for you, your relative, someone you know, is we've all heard of police coming to someone's house and whether or not they had a warrant to come in. Now, I practice a lot of immigration law, and in the immigration court, you know, there are warrants that are given to some of the ICE officers to go inside your home, but oftentimes they do not have a warrant. And how ICE gets inside your house is because you let them, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to me. You're letting them go in. They're sweet talking you behind that door, and you're letting them in. Talk to me, Attorney Haber, in the criminal context, whether or not there is a warrant or not.
Let me say two things about that. First, we've said this on this show many times, and it's a tagline that I believe wholeheartedly in. Up X2. Shut up and lawyer up. Invoke. You have rights. Don't throw them away. Every time that you consent to a warrantless search, that doesn't mean they're going to do it whether you consent or not. But when you consent, each and every time, a founding father rolls over in his grave.
It makes our job much more difficult.
It's horrible. It's like confessing. It's the worst thing you can do. You do not need to allow law enforcement into your home unless they have a warrant. Now, there are exceptions to the warrant requirement. So the Fourth Amendment says that in order for a warrant to issue, there's got to be probable cause and a judge needs to issue it. But there are times and there are exceptions to this warrant requirement. It prohibits unreasonable searches. And the Supreme Court has found some searches to be very reasonable and warrantless. For instance, plain view. Or we can talk about the substance of them, but just to throw a few out, inevitable discovery, Consent is again, it's a huge one. Hot pursuit. They call it exigent circumstances or the emergency exception. So if they're chasing you, let's say they do that traffic stop on you, Ms. Pratt, and you decide you're not stopping and you take off and you bolt right to your house and you get out of your car and you run in the door, they're going to kick your door in. They're not going to wait and get a warrant. Now, I mean, they could, and they probably should. It would make it a lot easier in the long run. But theoretically, anyhow, if they were in hot pursuit, they could potentially kick your door in under those circumstances.
Interesting. Okay.
But don't give consent. Don't give consent.
Yeah. Say, stay outside and wait for your lawyer. Call your attorney. Call PraDa Law, 888-88-LEGAL.
Because if you give consent, you're going to be waiving a bunch of defenses that we may be able to be used to suppress any evidence that is, obtained in violation of your Fourth Amendment rights.
Can I give implied consent, or do I have to actually speak up and say yes?
Consent is consent. You either consent or you don't consent. Now again, sometimes the police will say that you consented when in fact you didn't. Other times you will just consent. Now with body cameras, it's less prevalent, right? Because with a body camera, what happens is digitally preserved. So if a police officer says that you consented, but in fact you didn't consent and the body cam shows it, they're going to have a huge problem, and they know it going into it. 10 years ago, when there were no body cams, it was a completely different story.
Right. Okay. What if a sound issue? Like, what if there's
turn it off.
where they turn off the sound and the body language isn't really suggesting that you let them in?
These things happen all the time. So, again, I think law enforcement overall, most of them do the job the way it's supposed to be done. Every now and then you're going to get a bad apple. It's just, look, they could say the same thing about lawyers and they wouldn't be lying.
Right.
So, every now and then you get a bad apple. It just is what it is.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Attorney Haber. 888-88-LEGAL. Give us a call. The consultation is free.
Now, Attorney Silver, whether they have a warrant or not, you were talking to us during the break that you still may be able to defend these on a motion to suppress?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if a warrant is issued and the officers come in, they conduct a search and seizure, they obtain evidence, a good criminal defense attorney can still file motions to suppress and base them on constitutional violations, because sometimes the police, in obtaining the warrant, they don't take the necessary steps, or they may skip a step. They may hop over a fence, or get onto someone's curtilage. They may start opening up drawers and closets and searching around in your car when they're not supposed to. There's all sorts of things that they may not follow constitutional procedures and open up for a defense attorney to file a motion to suppress.
So in order to get that warrant, before, as a precursor, the officer is going to have to lay out their probable cause. They have to explain it to a judge. And so that probable cause can always be challenged in hindsight, right? Just because the cop says it doesn't mean it's true. Now, the judge isn't going to conduct their own investigation at that point in time. They're going to rely on the sworn testimony, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, of the officer. It's the defense lawyer's job to go back and check it. But then you've got issues with the warrant itself, right? The warrant needs to have specificity. It's got to specify the place. It's got to specify the target. It's got to specify the items that they're looking for. So a defense lawyer gets to go back in time using hindsight, 20/20 vision, and challenge all that as well. And then what happens if they find stuff that they weren't expecting to find? Or if they find it in a place that it wasn't supposed to be? There's always, like Dan said, there's always ways to try and attack it after the fact. The problem is when you consent and you just allow them in. Hi, we're here. We understand there may be a grow house going on. Oh, come on in, officer. Yeah, just go straight to the back bathroom over there, because let's just make it easy, right? No, you're not going to do that. But believe it or not, some people do.
And years ago, we got evidence excluded because the warrant said the cop was there to take photographs. Judge is like, take photographs? Do you mean take photographs or take photographs? That kicked it out.
Excellent point. So again, specificity. The Fourth Amendment requires specificity.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. The show's over, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, but we will be back on Monday. Happy Friday to all our viewers at home. Thank you so much, Attorney Haber, Attorney Silver, and of course, the lovely Jennifer Pratt. This is PraDa Law. I'm Jackie Mendez, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Right, Jennifer?
That's right. We'll see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And if you get yourself into any trouble, give us a call. The number's on the screen, 888-88-LEGAL. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you all next week.